B2B Cambodia, the portal for business use in Cambodia.
I'm B2B Cambodia's Darshana. Thanks for watching. Today I'll be speaking with Mr. Richard Nuttall, Director of Tax and Corporate Services at KPMG Cambodia, to discuss tariffs and supply chains. Hi Rick, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us today about tariffs and supply chains. It's great to be here at the KPMG office.
No worries, thanks so much for having me here today. I'm really excited to talk about this topic.
Right, yeah, thank you so much for your time. So to start off, I think it would be good to recap a little bit about all the major events that have happened in the past few months. So a lot of shocks, I think, for the global economy, but also for Cambodia with the US tariff rate initially 49% and now dropped down to 19%, which is a relief, but it's still maybe not ideal for the country. And then, of course, there was also the ongoing border conflict with Thailand, and that has, of course, disrupted supply chains, flow of goods, things like that. Can you just give us a bit of an overview on just how much this has impacted supply chains and this sort of flow of goods across and into Cambodia? What has the impact been that you've observed for both businesses as well as for consumers?
Sure. So, as you said, it's been a very eventful 2025 so far. As you are aware, when the border crisis hit, quite quickly the land borders were closed between Cambodia and Thailand. And that meant that a border that has traditionally seen huge amount of trade and goods passed on a daily basis was closed overnight. So this had a big impact for a lot of industries operating where they're importing goods from Thailand. So we have quite a few automotive manufacturers that rely on supply chains with their components coming from Thailand. We've got a lot of garment manufacturers as well that are sourcing their raw materials from Thailand. And then, of course, we have consumer goods retailers that have traditionally been importing a lot of goods for sale in the domestic market, also using a Thai border. So pretty much overnight, supply chains had to be rearranged. And I think the logistics companies did a pretty good job of quickly rerouting goods via Vietnam, Laos, sourcing product from different countries. But the overall impact has been to see an increase in costs, because obviously if you're sourcing goods with a short distance between Thailand and Cambodia and suddenly you have to go all the way up to Laos or around to Vietnam to bring the goods in, you've got additional costs in terms of transportation, you've got new processes for the clearance that perhaps the logistics companies aren't used to. So a lot more cost involved, and that ultimately increases the cost for the consumers and for the factories that are processing those materials.
Can you also elaborate a little bit more on what Cambodia has done, maybe from the government side, but also from the private sector side, to kind of lessen the impact that is felt by consumers? I know just from my own consumer standpoint, something like milk, for example, there was a huge fluctuation because there was a lot of fresh milk that was coming through Thailand. And there, as you mentioned, I've seen now an increase in Vietnamese milk, or even from Australia, for example. But in terms of the cost, actually, for something like that product, I haven't seen a huge difference. So I feel like there must be, something happening to try to reduce that sort of burden that is taken on by the consumers. So if you could maybe shine some light on that.
Right, so I think that comes down to the resilience of the supply chains, the fact that they've been able to source products from different locations really quickly. And some of that maybe was built up during COVID, because we had similar situation, right, when borders were closed, products didn't flow. So I guess during that time there was some skills and experience brought up that could quickly be drawn on during this current crisis. Also, where you've got existing agreements in place, it may be difficult to renegotiate on the costs immediately. So in the short term, you might not see a significant increase, but over time, you might start to see those costs increase.
And I mean, of course, this has been a very disruptive time, I think, for a lot of businesses. But do you think there's maybe also a bit of a silver lining that could come out from this situation? Because I think, there has been maybe more awareness on maybe Cambodia's dependencies on certain markets for things like consumer goods, or more awareness on the need to diversify the local production facilities, things like that, for example. So do you think that, maybe was there a bit of a silver lining? Have you been able to make that sort of analysis?
There's two things that came out of the two crises that were kind of highlighted from from what's happened. So the first one is with the US tariff crisis. I think in 2024, about 40% of all Cambodian exports were to the US. So of course, if that market becomes disrupted, it's a huge impact for Cambodia as a whole.
Right.
So yeah, that indicates that perhaps Cambodia would be well served by diversifying its export markets, because then it can insulate itself from shocks of this kind.
Right,
but at the same time, the US is the biggest consumer market in the world. So you don't want to ignore the biggest market you have, right? So you need to manage the risks a little bit around that. In terms of the border crisis, that has shone a different light, like you mentioned, in terms of how reliant Cambodia is, particularly for its domestic products, on markets around the region for imports. So I think there's definitely scope for a lot of the goods that are being imported and sold domestically to be produced in country. That certainly is something that I think Cambodia can look at to build out domestic industries, but that is not an easy fix, and there's a lot of barriers to do that. But certainly going forward, I would love to see Cambodia be able to manufacture and make a lot of its own goods, because that's only going to help Cambodia develop as a country.